I want to share with you now one story that I've heard just in the few months that I've been working with Genesis. It's a story of someone who I learned about and find inspiring. His name is Ludwig Guttmann. Ludwig Guttmann. He's actually the founder of an organization I have a feeling many of you are familiar with, the Paralympics. So he was born in Silesia, Germany around the turn of the century, and by the year 1933 became the leading neurosurgeon in all of Germany. And following the introduction of various Nazi Nuremberg laws and Kristallnacht, he was segregated into a Jewish hospital and is credited today by people who survived in Germany as personally having intervened on behalf of at least 60 paraplegic victims who he was treating in his facility at the time. And he literally negotiated on each of their behalf to keep them from being deported. He negotiated with the Gestapo at the time. Luckily for him and his family, by 1939, he was able to emigrate. He moved to Oxford, England, and by 1939 created a center for spinal injury in the UK and Europe that became a world-class facility. He began to experiment with a particular kind of rehabilitative therapy that had two forms at the time. The first was the idea that there needed to be a physical recuperation from the spinal injury in order to have physical strength using the remaining limbs that the person was able to work with. And second, and not less importantly, he understood that in addition to healing their bodies, he had to heal their souls. He had to reestablish their self-respect. And the way he did that, the insight that he had, because many of the people that he was treating were returning veterans from the war who came back with these injuries, he understood that they were still competitive and that they enjoyed community. And so he had the insight to say, let's create an environment of competition that is healthy and will stimulate their physical as well as emotional side and self-respect and give them the ability to set goals. And by 1948, he established what is well known today as the Paralympics. So here's the rub on the story. He dies in 1980, and nobody really knows the story of the founder of the Paralympics. People just know it as something that happens. So just this past year in 2012 in London, in an attempt to sort of share the story, his daughter unveils a statue at the beginning of the Olympic ceremony, and they tell the story. And suddenly the BBC gets interested. They decide to do a film about him called The Best of Men, and it talks about some of the backstories of people who, during the war years, went on to do some amazing things. And indeed, it becomes a viral event, and many people, at least in England, are aware of the story, talk about this guy as a hero, as a national hero, etc. I find myself, ironically, in London on July 4th of all days, last month, and I'm sitting with one of the judges from our selection process, one of our committee members, and he starts telling me this story. And I said to him, you know, in all candor, I never heard of this before, and this is exactly what we hope to do as part of creating this prize. Because if you think about what that story represents, it is indeed what we're aspiring to with the prize. To recognize, in some cases, that a person from anywhere has the ability to inspire, and that no matter what obstacles are put in front of them, no matter who or what attempts to prevent them from achieving their goal, that if someone has the will and desire to better the world in whatever their field or discipline is, that our community will find a way not only to support them, but to celebrate their victories and to share them and to consider it something as a collective accomplishment for the community. That's at the very heart of the storytelling of the prize for the year.